Everybody, welcome to the Power of Women podcast. I am Tori J, and
I am Taso the Starseed.
we are introducing our podcast. Today is our first official episode, and
Mini episode.
we want to thank you all for tuning in, and we want to give you a little background about the reason we decided to start the podcast in the first place. I'll let you go first.
Okay. So we decided to start the Power of Women because it's important for us as women in society today to understand, I guess, I know it sounds cliche, but understand our power. We live in a patriarchal society, and oftentimes women are oppressed and suppressed, and we don't realize just how powerful we are. And, even in our day-to-day interactions and dealings with people, we so often give away our power without realizing that we're giving away our power, or we suppress our power without realizing that we're suppressing our power just from day-to-day interactions. So we decided to create this podcast as a safe space, I guess, where we could talk about these daily dealings with society and how we are, in essence, come up with ways, talk about what we're going through so that we can become better, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what's crazy? One thing you said that rings a really large bell to me is safe space. So as Black women, I feel like too often we do not have a safe space where we can just let it all out and speak freely with no judgment. And when I think about my personal life and how much I've grown, learning who I am and learning to love myself, and when I speak to especially young girls and some of our peers, I realize how traumatized we all are and how we're just operating in this way that society has taught us to operate. And when you start to break free of that, you can see so much clearer. And
Right.
I would love to help our sisters, to just help women to break free of those shells and to really dive into who they are, to see the world for what it
Yes.
is, and to become who they were meant to be.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. But we have a lot that we want to discuss. Obviously, the power of women is a very broad topic,
So,
but yeah, we're going to break that down into, obviously you can't talk about the power of women without talking about the oppression of women, patriarchy, misogyny.
right, right,
Um,
right.
you can't talk about the power of women without discussing our relationship with each other, without discussing our relationship in society with our
Society as a
in
whole, yeah.
man with our
Mm,
families, with our
mm,
friends, um, certain things that are normalized that shouldn't be. You know what I mean? So I'm
absolutely,
looking
yeah.
forward to
Me too. Me
diving
too.
in. Yeah. So
Especially the family as well, because, oftentimes as well, it's something that we don't really speak about.
yeah.
We talk about so many different things in society, but we don't actually talk about the dynamics of the woman, especially the Black woman within the family. And even from motherhood, mother-daughter
Yeah.
relationship to father-daughter relationship to
Mm.
siblings relationship, these relationships all have different dynamics, and they all affect us as women, but it's something we don't often talk about. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to delving into and breaking down as well.
Yeah. Me too. Me too. Me too.
Okay, so when we discuss the power of women, obviously one of the biggest things for me is our relationship with each other.
Yeah.
And it's something that society loves to focus on. We talk about society talks about women and how women relate with one another regularly, and I think that's something that we need to delve into.
Yeah.
Um, Especially
Yeah.
at this level as well. We need to unpack it really just our relationships with each other. Is it good? Is it bad? Are we really catty to each other normally, or do we love each other? What is the, let's delve in, let's get deep into um, our relationship with each other as women.
I would love to. You know what's crazy? I have always heard growing up and just in certain environments, I've always heard that, well, you know how women are, or you know how catty women can be, or you know how nasty or mean, some girls can be, or even the term mean girls. Like
Mean Girls, yeah.
I've heard that all of my life.
Me
And
too.
I don't like it because you come into a situation and you like prejudge people because you have so many people putting those things in your ears. So now you automatically come into a situation on the defense.
Exactly. Right.
And a lot of times what happens is you're putting out energy and people are picking up that energy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it could have been nothing there, but just because of how we're coming into a situation, we are we're basically manifesting what it turns into. But one thing I would love to address in terms of women in our relationship with each other is um, where that comes from, or where do you think
Right.
that comes
Exactly. The
from?
root cause. Yeah, absolutely. Um, for me personally, I think that is as a result of society, patriarchy. I blame everything on the patriarchy,
I know
but
that's right.
I think it's to do with society and indoctrination. I think there's a song actually. Is there not a track by Beyonce with the Chimamanda? She has a poem at the beginning, and she's speaking about how little girls are often pitted against each other from very young.
Mm,
So we believe from very young that the prize is a man. We're told, we're groomed from young, okay, we're going to be homemakers and wives, right? And that we have to always fight for the attention of men. And
right.
the only way to do that oftentimes is to appear better than your fellow woman. So from a very young age, we're in competition. We're just taught to be in competition with each other. And I feel
Mm,
like that's also where we talk about the pick me, quote unquote. That's where the pick me notion comes from. It starts from a very young age. Everything about society grooms us to be against each other because, and there's always this thing that they like to say, that men are scarce, that there are more women to men. Um,
yeah.
so now we're all fighting for this prize of a man. And the easiest way to do that is to appear better than your sister. And how do you appear better than her? To drag her down. Everything is a competition. So I
Hmm.
think that it starts from childhood, to be honest. I think it starts from childhood and the reinforcement of our need to have a man by all means, by any by all means possible. The goal is to have a man, irrespective. And if you don't have a man, or if you're not working towards uniting with a man or being with a man, then you're not really a woman, quote unquote. So we
Exactly.
just spend our time constantly competing with each other, looking for their attention. And that, I think that that's the root cause of us even really dragging ourselves down, because even when you hear, well, supposedly dragging ourselves down, that's something we can delve into, because you know how I feel about that narrative anyway. Because,
Yeah.
obviously we do have, issues because we are a targeted group. And, but at the same time, I also find that that narrative is exaggerated.
Yeah.
The narrative that we hate each other is very exaggerated, because it's in the same sense. For example, if you say, you hear the narrative, Black people don't like each other. You hear that a lot. And yes, there is there are some people who don't necessarily, they're kind of victims of society. So they make comments and they don't really understand, and there's an internalized self-hate. But for the most part, Black people don't hate each other. I'm Black and I don't hate Black people. Do you hate Black people?
Girl, no.
You're Black. So I find that with women as well, as much as we say that we can be catty and society just pit us against each other, I also think that it's exaggerated, because first of all, if a woman, for example, they talk about women being bossy or catty or bitchy in the workplace. I think I saw a meme on Instagram and it talked about how women bosses are the worst types of bosses.
Mm,
But why is the woman boss worse than the man? Why? It's because there's a preconceived notion of how she's supposed to be. So she asserts a leadership position, or at least a leadership role, she's automatically seen as being bossy and not staying in her position. Whereas if a man boss was leading in the same way in which she was leading, he's a great leader, he's a great boss. But women are boxed, we're put in a box of how we're supposed to behave. And if we don't behave in that way, then we're demonized.
You know what's so funny that you said that? Um, in terms of the workplace, I noticed that anytime we act in a way that's not quote unquote ladylike, it's not acceptable. So, like, they've put these restraints on us in terms of how we can react. And a good example of that is like sports. Women who work in
Right,
sports, you see men all the time, passionate about the game. Sometimes they even get in each other's faces, and they show out on the court, or they show out on the field, and they just show out, and they're enjoying themselves, and people praise them, and they understand because
right.
they're passionate about the game. Now, if a woman shows that same emotion, she's passionate, she's fierce, she's yelling, she's throwing things, and just even just showing a lot of confidence, beating her chest, if you will. If she does that, a lot of times she can get reprimanded. Sometimes she can even get
Absolutely.
fined, you
Like
know.
Serena,
Oh my God.
they've done that often to Serena, haven't they? A
All
lot of
the
times.
time,
Yeah.
girl, all the time.
She's not
Even
allowed. Yeah.
women in so many sports, you're not allowed to express yourself the same way. You're not allowed to, and that goes beyond
Yeah.
sports too. That's in everyday
In
life. So,
general, it's a constant
so
restriction.
always, and like in the workplace, what bothers me about that is I feel like as a woman, you have so many things going against you. And when you are in a position of leadership, like somebody's boss or a supervisor or manager, anything like that, oftentimes you have to um, do above and beyond. The same way that we as Black people, we have to work harder, we have to be better, we have to show that um, we can be up to par to
Right,
whatever
right.
standards those are. But we always have to do above and beyond just to barely get equal opportunities. As a woman, it's the same, it's no different. So in fact, it's worse, because if you're a Black woman now, you already have the issue of being a sister. Now you
Double
got to
stigma.
now you
Yeah.
got to compete being a woman. So now you're in a position of leadership, and every little thing you do is judged. Like you said, is you instantly
Scrutinized.
looked
Yeah.
at like you're a bitch. And one thing that I love that you mentioned was how we're kind of groomed like that from childhood. When I think about it, like I remember being a little girl and having issues with other kids in school, and immediately everybody who would give me advice, they would say, "Oh, the girls are jealous of you. The girls the
Yes,
girls are
that's a
jealous of you."
powerful.
Girl, I used to hear that all
Yes,
the time.
that was all I heard growing up. Oh my goodness,
All the
yes.
time. And it's so funny because whenever
Mm,
I would hear the girls are jealous of you, this is something that was like ingrained in my head. So
me
it,
too.
it I instantly got taught two things. One, that when girls are mean, it's probably because they're jealous of me, because one, I'm better. And
Right.
two, um, it's like you come into a situation where you almost automatically assume that girls are gonna be like that. And it's, again, even the idea of being better, it makes you feel like you're above, or like you have
Exactly.
something
The
else.
competition pitting us against each other.
That's that competition. It starts from very young, like you said. I've noticed that. And I've
Mm.
noticed how like even how we fight for men, for example,
Oh my
you
goodness,
know,
yes.
the idea that there's not many men in the world or whatever. It's like so many of us compared to them, but regardless of what the situation is, the same way you gave that beautiful example by Chimamanda, I noticed that a lot of times women will, I'll use myself as an example.
Hmm.
Sometimes when I have been my most insecure has been
Right,
in a relationship.
right,
And it has been in situations where I quote unquote want this man. You don't want nobody looking at your man. Or
right,
if you
right.
see your man looking elsewhere, you want to either bash that woman or get her away or try to prevent him, if there's a way to prevent him from doing whatever it is you think that he could do, or you try to change yourself. And so many women do that. Like, we try to change
Right,
ourselves. Like,
right.
you see what kind of women he's into. Maybe he's into women that dress a certain way, so now you want to change the way you
So
dress.
then
Or
you do it.
yeah, or he's into women who wear their hair a certain way, or
Yeah,
their
absolutely. I
body
think we've
looks
all
a
been
certain
there.
way, girl. And we start
Yeah,
doing things because
absolutely.
we want to be chosen. And you know what I realized too, in terms of being chosen, like, one thing that
Girl,
I
you
really want
chosen.
us, girl.
That's why
one
they sung those.
one thing that frustrates me, one thing that really frustrates me is we want to be chosen so bad, and we believe that the man is the prize,
Mm,
and we are willing to do anything to be
anything.
somebody's wife,
Yeah,
anything to be chosen by this man, that
yeah. We
based
feel
on the
completely
statistics,
incomplete.
girl, based on the statistics, most black households um, end up in divorce,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
and
yeah.
and and that's a whole nother conversation for
Of
another
course.
day, because that can we can peel back the
Yeah,
layers
we'll
on
go
that.
real deep
But
into that.
yeah, but just in terms of like how we fight so hard just to be chosen, to be, with somebody, and the things that we're willing to do, and how, like you said, how incomplete we feel when we haven't been, or when
Without,
we're not
yeah,
married. I think it's so sad because we are so valuable within ourselves. We are so
right.
valuable before, during, and after having someone. We hold so much value. And I think the unfortunate thing is so many women don't realize that about
No,
themselves, and they
it's
feel
crazy.
validated once they have somebody. And so
Somebody, yeah.
we're now looking at each other like the enemy. And I can recall times where I've been with somebody that is clearly insecure, somebody that is um more than likely like misogynist.
Yeah.
They all have a little bit of that in them, a little bit of narcissism.
Narcissists.
Yeah, girl,
Oh my
all of that.
goodness. I mean,
but but I know but I noticed that when I'm with guys that have terrible wandering eyes, or guys who are obviously cheaters and I'm trying to ignore it, I notice that I have the most tension with my
yeah.
sisters during those times, because it's almost like I'm afraid that
That he's gonna go to them. That's what he
he's gonna,
likes. You're gonna get left.
yeah,
Yeah, of
yeah.
course.
And
And we
I
have that
hate
fear.
that.
Yeah.
I hate
Yeah.
that because cause me, just me, myself, no attachments to no man or to nothing specific. I love women. I love
Yeah.
connecting with women.
Yes.
And to be honest, some of my best supporters when I'm down or when I'm up are women. Women
Mine
are the ones that
too, man.
praise
They're
me.
just
If I go to
champions.
my like social media, it's always the women that are like
Me
showing me the
too.
most love, encouraging me.
Yes.
Like, your friend will
Yes.
see you and boost you up real quick. Like, girl, you cute, and
I'm
they
telling
just
you,
have you feeling
without
real
thinking
good.
twice.
Without,
That's
girl.
also back to what I was saying about, the narrative that we do say that, obviously, because you're saying that you're being very honest here and saying, how you feel within relationships. And we've all been there, the insecurity. But then to piggyback off of that, the second point that you just made about, going on social media and having women boost you up, again, is part of my, remember initially I spoke about exaggeration and how, women are actually great as well. So as much as we do have this aspect of us, we also have the aspect that is phenomenal. We're just
Yeah.
amazing uplifters. But again, that's when we don't have this insecurity um, that makes us act up against each other. And again, to add a point to that, remember we spoke about Amber Rose recently, right?
Yeah.
Um, and Amber Rose is a champion. She talks about the slut walk. She's very open about women embracing themselves and women doing what they like, which is great. And she got into a relationship, I think a year ago, with some guy. Don't know much about him, but she had a baby for him, right?
Hmm.
And recently she was on social media and she was really upset, and rightfully so. Turns out that he's a narcissist, allegedly, and he's just dated multiple women. I think up to 12, she mentioned. You know how they are, they can be very problematic.
Yeah.
And she speaks about it. And I must say, I can't say I was disappointed because I understand where she's coming from, but it's this issue again with us not really understanding ourselves. So she released a statement where she speaks about him and his cheating, but what she does within that statement is also attack the women.
Yeah.
And she kind of just says, all of you 12 women that knew that I was with him, you basically should have told him no, and you should have been with him. And I understand that mindset, but I personally find it so problematic, because, again, there's this unrealistic standard that we hold women to. Why is it the women who are single, who have made no commitment to you, why do you expect them to, it's like an undue pressure to me. You expect them to hold up your relationship. So for example, your man comes up to me now and says to me, I want to date you, right? And who, you don't know what he's telling her, by the way, because you know how men are telling her all kinds of bullshit lies. And now you want this woman in an ideal world to tell him, no, go away, you have a wife, right? And that would make you feel better, right? But you don't see, that's not tackling the root cause. You're looking
Exactly.
at the woman as the problem. The woman is not the problem. Your partner
Exactly.
who will not leave the woman alone is a problem. So if this woman tells him no, he will go to the next woman and try her. Do
Exactly.
you know what I mean? And I don't think it's fair. I think it's society. Like when we blame each other as women for that, and when society blames us, again, it's just society putting undue pressure on women. Like over here, you know, I'm in Nigeria, and I was listening to the radio, and I nearly called him. The guy said, this was his question. His question was, why do women agree to be side chicks? Right?
Mm.
And the wording of that is just so typical of the issues we face in society.
Yeah.
Instead of asking the question, why do men cheat? Why do
Right.
men have side chicks? You've completely removed accountability and responsibility from the man who is actually the one in the wrong, and asked the side chick, why is she accepting to be a side chick? You see the
Right.
complete dismissal, like, of responsibility, and who is in the wrong here. They've just shifted the blame onto the woman. And
Exactly.
I remember the guy saying, but what about sisterhood? What about your wedding vows? What do you mean, what about
Okay.
sisterhood? Like, did you not make a
Okay.
wedding? Where's your wedding vows with your wife? That's not important. You've now put this pressure on me as to say, okay, no, now that I'm dating him, I'm the bad one, when I'm the one who hasn't actually made any vows. You
Mm.
know what I mean? So I just find it,
Mm.
yeah, Amber was, and I knew that she was upset, but it's quite disappointing for me, you know, because I thought, well, Amber, what did you want them to do? Fight your battles for you, essentially, and make your man love you, or make your man stay at home, or make him not cheat. You know, like, I
Exactly.
understood that she was upset, but I just felt like it was, what's the word? It's not unfounded, misdirected anger. I think the anger was, I think she was misdirecting it. And oftentimes we do that as women. We misdirect our anger at each other because we're often harder on each other. It's the same thing with Black people as well, I find.
Yeah.
We tend to just be harder on each other.
Instead of looking
Um,
at the system.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what's crazy? Okay, I have a confession. So I have a confession. I am definitely guilty of what Amber did, and I am the first one to say I am a recovering blamer because I have I have definitely felt like
Yeah, yeah.
I have always blamed the man for being a dog or a cheater or just thirsty as I don't know what, just out here in these streets. But I have no, it's unique. It's crazy because I've had times where I know that the woman might not have known. And I don't necessarily blame those women, but there have been times where I've been with someone and um they have stepped outside of our relationship, and I know for a fact that some of the women knew, and I felt like, well, damn, I have felt like that,
Yeah, of course.
I have felt like that. It's so easy because you're angry at everybody. You get angry at
Yeah.
everybody. Your emotions are running through you. It's a traumatizing thing. A lot of things that we go through are so traumatizing, and that's something that's dismissed so much because it's something that a man does a lot. Now, when
Oh my
women do it,
goodness.
it's like the worst thing in the world as a woman that you can do.
Terrible.
You can't cheat. Like
Painful. You
most
can't
men
cheat
won't
on
even
him. His
tolerate it.
ego.
No,
And
you
he
can't
can't
do that.
take it.
No, you can't. And most men would not tolerate it the way that we
Would
do.
not. Would
So
not.
I find it really interesting because it is so painful and it's something that's so terrible to go through. You're just looking for everywhere to direct your energy and your anger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have definitely felt like, well, dang, how can she know about this? How can she do this?
Yeah.
We're sisters or
Yeah, of
whatever.
course.
But one thing I realized too, and I had to learn is what you mentioned. It's first of all, the responsibility is completely and only on the person that I have made a commitment to.
Right.
Whatever that commitment looks like, we have made our commitment, and you have to define for yourself what that's supposed to look like. And what I find is a lot of times us women, we get in situations with men, whether it's just a situationship or a relationship or whatever it is, a marriage, and we we let the man define for us what that relationship is going to look like. But it typically is only whether it's supposed to look like on our end. A lot of times those rules don't even
Right.
apply to the man. So a lot of times they can do what they want to do, or at least they do it anyway. But one thing I think we have to pay
We're
attention
less not as
to,
harsh on them as well.
girl, like, and people accept it a lot
Yeah.
more when it's them versus when it's us out there.
Yeah.
But I had to learn really quickly that, one, I do not know what that woman has been told. I do not know
Right.
how she's been manipulated. So a man could tell her anything, could tell her that he's single, could tell her that he's on his way out of a relationship. He can even be honest with her and tell her that he's in a relationship. The point is, he is the person that I made the commitment to. And if he doesn't care about the relationship enough to show me the same respect that he has asked me to show him, then he is not worthy. And
Mm.
that's where it ends. And that's where
Right.
we have to
Right.
start really putting the ownership and the responsibility on them. And we have to be
Right.
willing to walk away and willing to take our dignity and our self-respect and say, you don't deserve me, I'm through. And
That's how
another
you take
thing,
back your power. That is exactly how you take back your power in that
straight like that,
situation.
straight like that.
Mm.
Another thing I wanted to mention too about our society and about this culture, right? Like, when I hear things like who wore it better, you know
Oh, bruh.
who
Yeah.
wore it better,
Oh,
or who do you think did this better, or or a man could be with one woman and then get in a new relationship and they're like comparing the
they
women,
come straight
or
away.
Michelle Obama. She was graceful and beautiful, and then she leaves the White House, and then immediately she's compared to other women that come into the White House. I do not like the concept of comparing us because we're different. We are multifaceted beings. We're so creative.
Mm.
You can't really
Mm.
limit us in these tiny little boxes and spaces that they do. And they contribute. Like, think about some of the female rappers. Instant, or not even just female rappers, any kind of artist. Anytime there's an artist, there's always a comparison to, like, oh well, is this one better, or does she do this
But
more, or the
constantly, even in general, even when you meet people, do you know that I've had situations, right, which is really messed up because it's deep as just in like a regular day-to-day interactions. I've met people before, right? And I've been with someone else, and they'll make a comment like, oh, this one is finer than this one, or you're finer than her, or she's finer than you. And they just say
uh
it out loud. Like, I don't know, it's happened a few times. And I'm just like, why do you think that's appropriate? And why is that your instant reaction when you see two women together to decide who you prefer, who you think is more attractive, or who you think is better, and then actually now voicing it out loud and saying it to these women? Because when you say that, right, that's causing, you're literally causing conflict, whether or not you mean it. Because the person that you're telling that you're saying is not as good as whoever is instantaneously not going to feel good.
Mm-mm.
Do you know what I
And
mean?
you
Instantaneously.
and I hate that we give them the ability to even
To do
talk to us
that.
like that. You know what's crazy? A lot of times you cannot even you can never say something like that to a man. Like, who finer than you? You finer than this one,
It's
or
because we
who
don't even think,
who
because
was
we
on
don't. How
silent.
often do we do that?
No, we
and then
don't
it's
do
also
that.
not the need to like, there's
And
just
hell, and
this,
even if we were gonna do it, we would do it behind closed doors. We have a little
you
more
know what I
respect.
mean? It's that disrespect thing. Like there's this
Yeah.
open disrespect of women that is not supposed to, and they say it's not disrespect. We're supposed to just kind of take it, and
Yeah.
just kind of laugh at it, or it's not a big deal. Get over it. But
Yeah, I
no,
realize
it's
that.
yeah. There's a lot of open disrespect when it comes to women, and we're supposed to really just stomach it, swallow it. It's not that big a deal. Why are you making a big deal out of nothing? You know.
Yeah, no.
So
All of that in a nutshell contributes to the way that we are really pitted against each other.
yeah,
And this
absolutely.
quote unquote cattiness that people say that we have with each other, it's there sometimes and it doesn't have to be there. When I see
Right.
you on the street, you are my sister. When I see one of us winning, you are my sister. When I see, one of us hurting, it hurts me. When I
Yeah.
see one of us um going through things, especially if it's something I've been through, I can empathize. And if it's something I haven't been through, I can
I
still
can still
relate. I
empathize.
can, yeah, I can
Yeah.
still empathize. I can still
Mm,
relate, and I can still, because the thing is, one thing I think we all have to remember: if you're ever in a situation where you feel like somebody is being catty or, being away towards you, you don't know that sister's story. You don't know what she's going through. Um, I'm not saying that you have to tolerate it, but what I'm saying is we have to start being a little more understanding and compassionate with each other, because
right.
the world is doing that to us. That is not our energy. Innately, we bond and we connect and we thrive off of love. So I would love for us to start letting that be the forefront and having a little more
Of it.
compassion
Right.
with each other, because that's not who we are. And we need each other, and the
We
world
do.
is going to be
Absolutely.
better once we wake up and realize
We
that.
unify. And to add on to that, well, you know how I feel about this topic anyway. And as like I said, as much as I agree with that, and we do need to be compassionate and we do need to love on each other. And that's the topic that we're focusing on right now. I do also think it's so important to kind of say, like you mentioned earlier, man, Black women are phenomenal. Like
Yes,
the support that they give me, the way they uplift my soul. I find that, just like when you spoke about, if you come into a situation where you are met with cattiness or a lack of compassion, oftentimes as well, I think what we need to do is realize that it's not necessarily that it's the woman. It's just a human experience. And like you said, we don't know what she's going through. We don't know what's happening in her day.
exactly.
Because my personal experience, right? Men are allowed to be human. Men are allowed to have human experiences. They're allowed to just be and exist in their bodies. They don't have to shave. They don't have to do anything. Their bodies don't have to look a certain type of way. They're allowed to just be in their natural state. Women, one, are not allowed to just be in their natural state, and they're not allowed to just exist and have human emotions. If I kind of go back and think of the times that I have had um, real problematic encounters, should I say, the majority of my problematic encounters are with men, not
Mm,
actually women. But I don't hear the saying, oh, men are so catty, men are so this, men are so that. The majority of my negative experiences, emotionally, physically, just in general, is to do with men, egotistical men,
mm.
just constantly. And I think that's a lot of women's experience. But we just don't talk about that. We say, oh, the women are so catty, women, 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 because there's always this unnecessary, there's always this unfair, should I say, pressure on women. There's like an unfair spotlight to highlight our so-called flaws. And back to what I was saying, Black women are phenomenal. They
Yeah,
uplift me in ways that nobody else can. At my lowest moments, bruh, from you to strangers to like, oh my God, it is Black women. And whenever I feel seen with Black women. So I think it's important that when we deal with people, this so-called cattiness, we should remember that it's not really a feminine thing. Obviously, it's a feminine thing because society, the society tries to pit us against each other, but even then, we still succeed and we still unify. It's more so just having a human experience. Because, like I said, men do shit like this all the time. Men disrespect me on a regular basis. In fact, women don't. I do not get disrespect from women. It's very rare. And oftentimes, if we do it, like you said, it's to do with men.
Girl.
When we're fighting over men, some sort of like, but oftentimes women don't just disrespect me or cause me pain and harm. Men do that quite regularly,
Yeah,
but nobody wants to
likewise.
speak about that. Nobody speaks about that. How often do you feel violated by a man when he's made a comment that's inappropriate, or he said something disrespectful,
Or
or he's
touch you.
expected you to shrink your, or to touch you, you know, touch you even, and feel like you don't have a right to now say, please don't touch me. It's a regular, constant, daily violation. How many times have you had
Yeah.
to smile when you don't feel like smiling?
Ooh.
Someone's made an inappropriate comment and you're just like, like, and
Yeah.
you really don't want to, but you have no choice. This
Don't
is like
don't
my
let it be your
daily.
boss. Don't let it be
Oh
your
my
boss or
God.
somebody over you,
Oh
right?
girl,
Oh,
did I tell you about I won't mention names, but I told you that I had a recent someone wanted me to work for them recently, and I told them that I left my old workplace because of harassment from my boss, because again, sexual harassment. Um, and as he was trying to convince me to come and work in his company, um, and I think, what did I say? It was something about hospitality. I said, yeah, well, I'm into hospitality. That's what I do as well as my writing and publishing. And he said, "Oh, my dick just got hard when you said that."
oh,
And to him, that
oh.
was,
What was that, a compliment?
I just can't. Do you know what that was an appropriate thing to say to
Oh, they
somebody
so
that,
disgusting.
do you know what I mean? This is the daily harassment and daily inconveniences that we deal with as women. But we as women don't even see it. And we'd rather focus on, the next lady who's dealing with this madness the same way we are.
Yeah.
So I just think that, like, when you spoke about the compassion, I definitely agree with that. I just wanted to add on to that, and the compassion should really come from, we need to really understand ourselves as human beings and just know that oftentimes we're having a human experience, and it's not necessarily to do with the fact that it's the women are just bitches. No, society is quite hard for us. Society is hard for everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to add that on and big up Black women, because you know how I feel about
Yeah.
about us, and just the unfair. I think it's just unfair. As much as
Yeah.
it's true, there's also like just an unfairness to it all, and just a tarnishing of who we are and our essence. And they do it anyway, but no, women are beautiful. They're such uplifters. Strange women, even like strangers, have done amazing things for me, and I'm sure you too.
Girl, all the
You know,
time. All the
yeah. So
time. All the
yeah.
time. Like, and I've been in very similar situations in the workplace, um definitely in relationships where
Mm,
I've just been torn down by men. And when I
yeah.
think about the ways in which women have showed me love and been there for me,
Mm,
like some of the hardest times I've been through, I've had strong women like yourself um around me just
mm,
to hold my hand through certain situations and show me a lot of love. And I'm so humbled by that love
yeah.
because they don't
Yeah.
have to. and
No.
and it brings it back full circle because I'm like, women, we are amazing. And like you said, Black women are phenomenal. We have no reason to fight. I don't care what society says. I don't care about the pressures. I
Mm,
honestly feel like once we realize who we are, we can now we
so
can avoid conforming to society and those pressures to just be against each other and to judge each other or assume the worst
yeah.
about each other. Matter of fact, instead of looking at another sister going into the same job opportunity as you, like, oh, that's my competition over there, look at it like, girl, if either one of us win, we both winning.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah,
how we have to start
absolutely.
looking at things. And we're better
Absolutely.
together. We're stronger together than we
We
are apart. So,
are.
on that
We
note, I just
are.
want to say to my beautiful Black women, I love you, ladies. Let's put the
Yeah.
foolishness aside and stop letting other people dictate our relationship with each other. I want you
Yeah.
to win. I want to see us win.
Yes. And we can continue to do it together. And this is why we have this podcast. This is why we created this anyway, to kind of um get us back to our innate power. And
Yeah.
through conversations like this, breaking down topics like this, we our goal is to bring everyone back to their true power, every woman back to their true power, back to their true essence. So hopefully, we're able to do that with you throughout the coming weeks and months of tuning in with us.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all for stopping by and joining the conversation. I look forward to many, many more. This was our first episode. We are very grateful. And was there anything else you wanted to say to the people?
No, it was just great to speak and basically share our private conversations with the world, because this is what it is. And it's nice to kind of open it up on a grander scale so that we can, like you said, we've had amazing growth. So now we can help and impact other women to start to really understand their true essence and their true value. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning into The Power of Women. And we will see you next time.